On the sort of he can't defend story, how do you see that? And do you believe there is some truth in it? And if so, what are his strengths and what are his weaknesses, would you say?
Yeah, well, I think Chloe's covered really last night. Don't really have much more to add. It was obviously pretty much a rock solid performance from him.
Hmm.
Man of the match contender without doubt. I think it's an interesting question. Just the general idea about Trent's defending and the narrative that exists, and clearly the narrative is overly simplistic, and it's a way for his critics to kind of beat him down,
Hmm.
and it's just an unfortunate reality. Kind of in this probably social media age of football, we can't. If a player doesn't play for our team, it seems like we can't accept that they're just a great player. That we have to find a weakness that they have and constantly sort of badger on about it. To be honest, but you know, let's face it, like there are right backs out there who are better at defending than Trent. Um, I think that's fair to say. The fact that he's the best right back in the world comes from his abilities going forward. The best player in that position, certainly. I think for me, there's a few, ways you can add kind of a bit of nuance to this. Um, so if we talk about kind of the 1v1 side of it,
Hmm.
I often think that if there's a winger who is kind of a specialist when it comes to 1v1 situations, that it can sort of be a 50-50 battle over the course of the game. Trent will win a few of the battles, but the winger will get past him a few times as well. Um, and, that's something that we've kind of seen in the past, and maybe that's what people can kind of look at and question him, really. But I'd also say, on the other hand, and it's an important point to stress, a lot of the time Trent isn't defending. It's not so much that he can't; it's that the positions he's in and he's in the pitch. Sometimes the ball will be with the centre backs, and he'll be in the other team's half. He'll be almost playing like a right midfielder in a 4-4-2, in terms of his position. And then you'll see a lot of situations where the ball gets turned over, and he just kind of isn't there because of how high up the pitch he is, and that's just the system, really. Um, and it's obviously a lot more difficult for him to make the impact defensively when he's kind of running back to situation, and it's kind of developing like that. And staying on the system, I think it's also worth stressing that Liverpool Liverpool's defenders, the job for them is almost harder than it would be for any other side, and it's because of this high line. So it's much easier for a defender to defend when they can see everything that's in front of them. But in our system, it's almost like you have to let them kind of run in behind you in a way, in the confidence that your line's going to be solid enough, and you've got the recovery pace if needed to catch them out. So it's an extremely difficult system to defend in, really. And I think that's why the centre backs deserve an awful lot of credit as well. Um, and the last thing I'd say on this is that Robertson is better defensively than Trent. I'd say. I think most Liverpool fans would agree on that. And the consequence of that is that a lot of the time, when opposition sides try and spot something like a weakness in this Liverpool team, it will be down Trent's side. So they will focus a lot of their attacks down there. So that makes it more difficult for them. And we see as well things like him getting overloaded at the back post, maybe
Hmm.
not getting the cover he needs occasionally from um, the kind of player who's in the right centre midfield slot. So there's a lot of factors at play here. But I think, the key thing is, I mean, it's hard to think of too many sort of examples off the top of my head. I'd have to look into it a bit, but I think not only the past couple of games, but kind of generally this season, and certainly the recent past this season, we have seen an improvement. And Chloe mentioned it there, like he is still really young. He's, I think, still going to improve defensively, and I think we are seeing that already. And he's making a lot of crucial defensive interventions, and I think he wants to as well prove that that is a side of his game where he feels he's strong, because he'll be aware of the criticism.
Yeah, he will be, and I think we have seen a marked improvement this season. I think for me, my overriding thought on sort of Trent's weaknesses, if you could call them that defensively, particularly this year, are simply, like you say, are simply down to positioning. Because I think opposition sides target his area of the field because he's so often not there. Like, how often is he running back and trying to deal with a situation that's already kind of evolving? Because, like you say, he's so high up the field. It's ridiculous. More so than Robertson for me by far. And also Robertson's got Virgil van Dijk on his side, which helps because we all know how good he is. And listen, Joel Matip or Canate, whoever's on the right hand side is obviously a very high operator, but Virgil van Dijk's levels above that again. So Robertson's got a better insurance policy as well. But yeah, for me, I don't really see them as weaknesses because if Trent's in a situation to deal with something like we've seen over the past couple of games, he's more than capable of dealing. The issues come whereby we lose the ball in transition and then he's caught way out of position. And then all of a sudden it looks really bad. And that's where his critics target and say, look at him, he's not even there. He's chasing back desperately. But that just is almost like it comes from being so aggressive and it comes from being so influential. And it comes from the way Klopp wants him to play. So we can't really blame him. But we will move on, unless you've got anything burning to say on that, Chloe, or you're quite happy.
No, I was just going to say, if you watched that Rio Ferdinand did a thing with Jordan Henderson the other day, came out, and if you watch it, he talks about Trent and the positioning, and it's almost like Jordan Henderson becomes the right back because Trent goes past him, and Jordan Henderson then becomes the right back. So it's kind of like, oh, not just, do people moan about Trent when it's one-on-one situations or whatever. It's also the case of, oh, someone's had to cover for you here. But in actual fact, it's because the role that Jordan Henderson plays or that right centre midfielder plays, it's almost like cover. Because let's be honest, Trent is possibly the biggest influence on this football team going forward. He's the one that's got 16 assists this season and can put a ball pinpoint on someone's head. That's just who it is. And if you look at Man City, they do the same. They have their right backs come in as kind of like the centre mid, if you get what I mean. It's so narrow in what they do. And Liverpool now do that. And Jordan Henderson becomes the right back cover. And I think loads of people moan at the fact that someone else is having to do that job and cover for them, when in actual fact, that's just the way it's set up.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, can I just say,
course.
Quickly on that, Dan, Klopp was obviously asked about it before the game, and he said essentially if he wasn't happy with Trent defensively, he wouldn't be playing. And I think, just picking up on what Chloe said, really, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing within the system, and he's supposed to be that advanced, and Klopp accepts that you might have to take a little bit of defensive pain down your left-hand side because it will unlock Trent to attack kind of with that freedom when he goes forward. So I think he is more than happy with Trent's contribution. And it's a system really that is full of risks, risks that pay off most of the time. And I think, like I say, if Trent can kind of start to win those kind of 1v1 duels more often than not and kind of improve when he is having to do the defensive work, which we are already seeing signs of, then I think it'll be perfect, really.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And the City point's a really valid one because, Kyle Walker probably gets caught out in a similar fashion quite a lot. And we've seen him get into a lot of trouble this season. I think he gives away that penalty against Southampton, doesn't he? And I think he got sent off, but then he got rescinded. But it's purely down to pace for him. He gets himself in all sorts of trouble, but he has the recovery pace, so people don't talk about it as much. But in terms of defensive acumen, I think Trent is more than capable of operating in this Liverpool side.